Bring your houses, we walk down to flush them out.
Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a journey into the depths of men's hearts where courage meets vulnerability and wisdom embraces integrity. In a world that often measures a man by his outer achievements, this podcast dares to explore what truly defines a man of character. We unpack the challenges and triumphs that shape men's lives, bringing to light stories of resilience, compassion, and unshakable faith. We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good evening and welcome to another episode here on the Hearts of Men podcast. It is Friday, May 30th, and I hope all is well with you gentlemen. I am hoping and I am confident and have faith that we're going to have another great show tonight. But before we get into all of that stuff, let's start off with some laundry. So with that being said, gentlemen, we have a good show planned for tonight. But before we get into that, I don't know, I already said it again, but how y'all doing this evening? There we go.
I'm good, man. All is well on this end. Have no issues, no concerns. Another great week. And as always, I love being here with you gentlemen, having conversation with you. And like we always say, we greatly appreciate and welcome the chat, the livest chat and social media. So I look forward to all these conversations on Friday. Actually, every night. Every night we go live, I look forward to it. So that's where I'm at.
I agree. Available man, what's on the what's on your plate this evening, sir?
Man, y'all know I'm always good by the time it hits, 6:30 Central Time. I get to click in and chill with my brothers, man. No matter how the week going, I get to come here and decompress and have good conversations and, charge my brain and my body. So I'm ready. I'm here for it.
I think it's something to be said about that. I heard, a few years back, how important it is for people to have constant communication with people in their circle or their loved ones or different things like that. And we're actually going to be talking about some of those things tonight. And if you look at the topic, it's called Your Circle Determines Your Cycle. But even before we get into that again, I do want to say thank you and welcome to the most elevated chat and the most empowering chat here on YouTube. So with that being said, Miss Crystal Everett, we appreciate you for being here this afternoon. Miss Dick D, thank you for being here. Lisa Keys, His Divine Appointment. Who else is here this afternoon? I saw Miss Charlotte Jordan. Appreciate you for being here this afternoon. Who else? Did I miss anybody? Miss Nodella, Sacagawea Jordan, I see you over there on Facebook. Miss Adrian, Artist, appreciate you for being here this afternoon. Shell, good to see you as well. And thank you for bringing my chapstick to me. I really appreciate it. Shout out to Mr. My dog too. I told him he said he was gonna be watching tonight. I told him I was gonna shout him out. So yeah, the dog, right? So
I thought I heard that. I wasn't quite sure.
yeah. Yeah, Shell wanted me to do it. I was like, I'd go ahead and do it for her. But anyway, gentlemen, I got something for the chat. I got something for y'all. So we got to have a couple recorded shows for Coach's Corner coming up, right? On Tuesday. I want to let y'all know me and Coach had two really, really, really good shows that we recorded this week. So the next 2 weeks, y'all make sure y'all tune in to Coach's Corner on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Coach, what else we got going on the agenda over the next week that the people need to tune into?
Yeah, pretty easy week. Once we're done here tonight, we got Sunday morning where we'll be doing TikTok live. I think that is hosted by um, this young man below me. And then of course Bible study at 2 o'clock. And then just like you announced on Tuesday at 7 p.m., we got Coach's Corner. So y'all make sure y'all tune in.
Yep, tune in. There you go. So tonight, gentlemen, we're going to be talking about your circle determines your cycle. I just want to start by not a big story, but a little story about something that I went through way back in 2003. So I'll be very transparent. I was married previously, and I was in the military, and I came home from work, and my then wife was gone, and she had left me, and she had took my two sons. I'm not here to talk bad about her or bash her or anything like that. I'm just talking about the story and what happened. So during that time, it was hard for me. I even, had some, thoughts about not wanting to be around here anymore and stuff like that. When you're still young and you're really invested into a relationship and your family and stuff like that, and then something like that happens, it can be very hard for a young man or a young person or anybody that's going through that, regardless of the age. So one of the things that I did have is I was kind of sort of in the church at the time. So I had some gentlemen around me that would, hang out and, come over and, check on me and different things like that. I had a wolf pack. I had a circle of guys. It wasn't a lot. It was about two guys from church, because I really didn't want everybody in my business. But those guys, that circle that I had at the time kind of helped me a little bit throughout some of those things that I was going through, So before we even get into that, I would like to kind of break down or have you gentlemen talk about what you mean or what are your thoughts on what your circle is. So I got my definition, but I would like for you guys to add to or take away from the definition so we can kind of set a foundation for the conversation when it comes to your circle and when it comes to your cycle. So when it comes to your circle is the people you spend the most time with who influence your thoughts, habits, and direction. And your cycle is the patterns or results you consistently experience. So based off of these two definitions of these two words, gentlemen, what do you have to add to and or take away from these definitions?
I will. I'll jump out there. I have no qualms with the cycle aspect of it. I do believe your cycle is are patterns and results that you consistently experience. Circle, um, I think that's more so of an exchange of thoughts and habits and direction. I don't want to, and this is just my perspective of it. I don't want to leave it at influence because it's almost like saying that my circle has more influence on me than what I have in the circle. I think the reason why the circle is valuable because we get to exchange ideas and we get to challenge assumptions, beliefs, and things of that nature, so that everybody in the circle is growing and expanding at the same time.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, I was going to take the same approach concerning the circle, because when we use the term uh, who influence your thoughts, habits, and direction. Well, so for me, my everybody's direction, thoughts, and stuff are influenced, right? Uh, but it's not necessarily solely in my circle. But I would say the people in my circle, we get the source of our influence, I believe, from the same place. Now, whether we have the same, come to the same conclusions and ideas of what that source is telling us or is sharing or giving us, that's the conversation we have in the circle. Those are the things we push back against, to, and it's not to prove one or the other wrong, but more so helps me challenge myself. Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I see it the way I see it? And can I prove it? And if I can't, it doesn't mean that because coach did a better job of proving it, I now jump on coach's wagon with it. But I go back and I look deeper. And if I'm wrong, then I adjust. But influence, I say it pushes me more than influence me. Because like coach say, not saying that the circle has more influence on me than I have in the circle.
I got a follow on question. And I'm thinking about it as I'm looking at the next question before I pull it up. So if we're looking at this term circle, is my circle consistent of, well, is the circle consistent of layers? Meaning that I have an inner circle, I may have a middle circle, I may have an outer circle, or is it just this is my circle, and then everybody who's not in this immediate circle is considered outside of the circle? So which one is it? And coach probably gonna say yes. Which one?
Yeah. Great, Gad. I'm sorry.
Nah, I'm sitting there like, because I don't think that there's a one-off definition. It's it's personalized. So now for me, the way I heard it, through an old pastor, he said it like this: everyone should have three kind of friends, right? I'd just say three friends because I don't need too many people. I call friends unless my circle expands. But like mine, but anyway, he said, but three type of people: one that you can glean from, that you can be mentored by; one that's just as crazy and stupid as you, that you can hang with; and then one that you can influence and mentor and guide, right? And so for me, I feel like my circle has been changing over the last few years because the people I'm looking to be mentored and guided by look different than when I was 30. Now that I'm coming up on 40, you know, uh, and there are people that I feel like I maybe not necessarily mentor, but talk with and give advice on occasion. Now, where I lack at, for the most part, I would say with someone just as dumb and stupid as me that I can just chill and kick it with. Because most people as dumb and silly as me are not trying to go where I'm trying to go.
So I'm gonna go back to what you said. I think, like you said, the answer is yes. I think sometimes we struggle with this thing called capacity because we move out of the notion of, and again, we've talked about this in the past. So social media, we're at the place where we're just looking to be liked, and so initially, when we have that mindset, our circle keep changing because we move at the speed of likeness. So now, those people who like me the most, that's who I fly myself around because. In your immature state, you're looking for somebody to pour into you and validate you and all that other great stuff. But once you expand your understanding of what relationship looks like, then you start realizing that you don't have the capacity for 100 friends, like the whole social media world is trying to get you to understand. So what you do is you have those three close friends that you call your inner circle. Those are the people that you call almost every day. you bounce ideas off. And I say almost every day. It doesn't mean like every other day. It could be like once a week or whatever that look like based upon your schedule. Those are the people that you bounce ideas off of. Those are the people that you talk about some of your beliefs and things of that nature. And those are the people that challenge you to move outside of your comfort zone and vice versa. But then you have those people on the outside of that. And those people are like-minded individuals. It's just those people just aren't the people that you talk to on an everyday basis, but you still can talk about the exact same thing. So that's kind of like how I see it. And again, it's all based upon the person's capacity at that point in time in their life.
Yeah, I get that. I'm gonna go back to thank you, Miss Verlene McCoy, for your question. Appreciate you for being here this evening. So what do you classify as influence? So, before I do that one, um, I want to hit this one up. Nick D, thank you for this question. Or this statement as well. Nick D says, the people I spend most of the time with do not influence me. Just that piece right there kind of goes back to what Coach was talking about. It's not necessarily influence piece. And when I heard that, it makes a lot more sense. Is that, I think that your circle and people can influence you, but it's not necessarily something that will automatically come, because there are certain things that I have been influenced by from you guys, just from being on this podcast for over a year or so. You know what I'm saying? But you guys are not directly influencing every single decision that goes on in my life. So I think when it goes back to this question is, what do you classify as influence? For me, it's just maybe picking up learned behaviors or just learned information from someone else. That's kind of how I look at it. What about you guys?
I would say the same thing when we're talking about as far as a circle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think sometimes you can hang with someone long enough that you do pick up a mannerism or two, you know, or saying or what have you. Um, but not necessarily in the sense of you you influence the total path of my life, and I can't make a decision unless I talk with you. Kind of influence, no, but you do. I think the people in my circle that I spend the most time with do help influence the things I look at, the things I think about. Even talking to you, brother, sometimes we get in the back office, and next thing I know, I'm watching shows I probably would never watch because I think Coach and Roe are like the kings of TV shows. But I find a new watch every now and then, because I listen to them talk. But you get what I'm saying? So it's seldomly there are some influences there.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna slide on down to our first question of the evening. Should we 18 minutes in? We didn't get to the first question. So you already know that means we're gonna be cooking tonight. So with that being said, gentlemen, how can you tell if your circle is helping or hindering you? And I think that this is a really good question because I think sometimes people automatically people will or sometimes influence or for whatever reason be part of a circle because they feel an obligation to it, and that person or the circle that they're attached to may actually be hindering them, but they may be told that it's actually helping. So how can you tell if your circle is helping or hindering your growth?
I would ask a question, right? Um, do you have a vision, right? Uh, because you can't tell if there's no vision. Because if there's no vision, there's no direction. We're just moving along. I just took an opportunity because it was there. I just, made it. I just made an investment because I wanted to do something with my money or something. But is there a vision? Where are you going? What is the path? What does it look like? Right? We can, I either go to, you know, write that we should write the vision, make it plain so that those who carry it out can follow, right? Or even does a man does a man build the house and not first count the cost? What does it look like? But I don't think sometimes we know what kind of house we want. We just want to buy the house. So then my friends or my circle are neither hindering nor are they helping, because there's no direction to help and there's nothing to hinder. Now, if there's a vision, the way that you can tell is because you can see if you are in alignment with that vision. Have you written it out? Have you counted the cost? Do you know what it looked like? Where am I supposed to be by next year based upon the vision? And when I look at where I'm supposed to be going, if the people in my circle, I don't want to say that they are making, because the responsibility is on me, but if because of what my circle consists of and what we do, it's pulling me away from where I'm supposed to be going, then they're hindering. If I see myself not moving in the right direction that I'm supposed to be going, then they're hindering. But if I see that I made it a little bit further and it felt easy, or it felt like I wasn't even moving, but I got closer somehow, then maybe the circle is growing, or it's helping, it's pushing me. That's my perspective.
There's a lot of assumptions that we can make when it comes down to this question here, right? I love what you just said, Gaddy, but the assumption that we make there is that you articulated your vision to the circle. If you never told the circle what your vision is, then the circle can't be responsible for you moving in the direction of your vision. Within the question, it seemed like there's only two options: to help or to hinder. I love when you just said that it's my responsibility to grow. Absolutely right. Where does the circle fit in? The circle actually holds you accountable. So if I am in a circle that does not believe in accountability, then now I have to ask myself, am I in the right circle? That's the thing. I think too many times we look to be in a circle and we look for comfort. We look for complacency within that circle, but that's not the responsibility of the circle. The circle itself, if it's done accurately, should be a circle of growth, right? Entire circle should be growing. And if we identify one person in the circle that's not growing, then we have a responsibility to go to that brother or sister and say, hey, what's going on? How can we help? So I think that's the thing. If we look at it and we don't have people in our circle who hold us accountable for ourselves, people in our circle who are not themselves responsible, then that circle can actually be a circle that's hindering me. But if I'm in a circle that actually believes in responsibility, that actually believes in accountability, and we are visionaries and we are dreaming together, then that circle is helping me.
I think you guys are spot on, especially when it comes to the self piece. Um, the self piece, I think, is very important. I don't know if I'm adding to this or not, but for some reason, I'm looking at growth, like the growth and the outcomes of whatever is going on in your life. So if you're surrounded by people and you're not growing, then maybe that's not the best circle for you. Maybe you should be somewhere else. Maybe some people don't need to be the part of the circle. I don't know. But also, I remember I had a pastor a long time ago. He was talking about influence, and he was talking about people you hang around. And he was like, who's influencing who is, every time, y'all go to the club, somebody say, hey, let's go to the club. You always go with them to the club, but they don't ever want to come to you at church. You know what I mean? So it's like who's influencing who. So I think sometimes you can see identifiers in the relationship in the circle based off of people's actions and stuff like that. But I really appreciate everything y'all said. Y'all was on there and the chat too. Some good comments. Go ahead.
Can I caveat?
Yeah.
So, and if I'm jumping, just say, Gaddy, shut up and mute your mic. I don't want to jump.
Good.
But you got to be open-minded in your vision, not your end goal, but how we gonna get there. Because I joke a lot about the fact that my brothers got me by a decade, I think, in like 2 years to be exact. But I'm not counting specifics, but the reality is, when I share my vision with these brothers, they've been there. Maybe not there where I'm going, but they've been through through a little more life. They've seen a couple of more things. They know that there's more options. They may not have traveled down my road, but they may know someone that traveled down it, and they've heard them talk about it and picked up some things to be careful of. Because I think sometimes we get narrow-minded. Like, I got this vision, and these are the exact same steps I want to do to get there, and this is what it needs to look like on the way there. But Unc may come around and say, maybe you should look into this or try this. No. And I'm thinking now I'm looking at him like, you trying to hinder my vision. No, they're actually trying to help. And I think sometimes we don't know. That's where we don't know the difference between helping and hindering, is that sometimes we're not open-minded. So my question then would be like, what do I do? How do I know whether or not the advice that you're giving me is actually going to align with what I see myself going, or what I'm trying to do, or if it's a hindrance?
Ooh.
Go ahead.
I got some really good advice a long time ago. And I thought when he said it, it was first alarming, then profound, then prolific, right? And if you don't know the difference between profound and prolific, go look it up and you'll understand what I mean when I say first alarming, then profound, then prolific. I think a lot of times when we hear stuff, we can't get past the alarm because it kind of moves us off of our square. But if I'm in a circle that wants me to be comfortable, then I need to question whether or not I'm in the right circle. So if I am talking to people in my circle and I'm trying to figure this out or whatever, and when I'm asking questions, I like the fact when you say I got to be open-minded. Going back to the advice, he said, if I am an expert in banking and you ask me a banking question, shut up and listen. We don't like being told to shut up. That's part of our problem. Two things we need to shut up. First your brain, then your mouth. If you need advice, shut up and listen. Because maybe what you might find is if you stop talking long enough and you stop thinking long enough, they might be giving you some really good advice, but you can't process the advice that they're giving you because you're too busy trying to combat it. But you're the one that needs the help. And I've always said this. If you are in need of help, then you're not qualified to tell me how to help you. Shut up and listen. And I think we will do well at opening our brain, closing our mouth, and listening to the advice that we receive so that we can move forward. Because what I've been doing ain't working. So if what I'm doing is not working, why am I trying to compete with what you're saying, knowing good and well that what you're saying may have some value if I just shut up and listen?
Yeah. And with some of the things, how do you know if it's lining up and the information you're getting is accurate? Depending on what it is, but does it line up with your principles and whatever it is that you believe? You know, if you're going through something and me and coach like, man, let's just, let's say, for instance, not you, but anybody, someone's going through something, or a relationship with a husband or something like that, and the girl's like, man, forget him. That girl, let's go to the club, man. Forget about him. Like, maybe that's not the right circle because they don't necessarily line up with your beliefs and how you believe. And so I think not only everything that coach said, but I think also you, with certain things, how do you know if the information that you're receiving is accurate? Is the information lining up with your beliefs and your principles? Moving right along, folks. And I don't know if we've hit on this or if we need to tap into this or move on, but what are some silent signs that you're outgrowing your current circle? They don't text back. What?
Ah, man. Whew. I think I don't like to use the term outgrow my circle, but I can't. But I think it's
Okay, why not? What's wrong with outgrow? I want to hear. Or if you want to replace it, this is what I mean. What would you replace it with?
So for me, I would probably say more of I've reached maybe a pinnacle of where I can go in this circle. I didn't outgrow the circle, right? It's just maybe I've gotten what I can get from here.
Okay.
Is what is offered here is no longer feeding my growth. But I don't think that means that I grow out of the circle. Maybe I add an addition to my circle, because I add someone to my circle that don't necessarily mean it has to be a part of your circle. It's just a part of who I added into my net. And so maybe that person can help me continue to push. Maybe I see this person as a mentor moving forward, but it doesn't mean that this person leaves my circle. Because I think if someone has helped you grow, you'll still need to be able to talk to them. You'll still need to be able to come and glean from them. Maybe they can't get you exactly to where you're trying to go, but they can help you with some things that they've seen, because they've helped you get to where you are. They can talk you off the ledge sometimes when you're ready to just let it go. But maybe I just need to I added this one person to my circle and grew my circle because they can help push me continuously. But that's why I say I don't use the term outgrow, because that means I grow when I leave the circle. I may not do this specific thing no more. I may have to shift gears to the right or to the left, but you're still my circle.
Yeah. Again, another one of those things that's in my mind as I'm looking at this. I think a lot of times we assume that we are outgrowing the circle, but maybe we are being complacent in the circle, and the circle is outgrowing me. And so what I am believing it to be is that I am outgrowing the circle. But the question I would ask, because remember, the circle is responsible because it's a relationship, and I believe relationship is the perfect training ground. So the circle is responsible for challenging assumptions, challenging beliefs, and propelling people forward in the direction of growth. So the question I have to ask myself: am I invested in the circle, or am I just showing up, not being an active participant in the circle, just expecting to receive from the circle? Energy begets energy. I can't expect the circle to give me something that I'm not giving it. So I cringe when I see, especially silent signs, because I don't think signs are silent. I think when things are happening and they do not resonate with you, I don't think that's silent at all. I think that it's very loud. And then, based upon, because I don't care who you talk to, this is where they're going to say certain things like, well, how do you feel in relation to the circle? Well, remember, my feelings are my responsibility, not the circles. So I have a responsibility to analyze how I feel, not project how I feel at the circle. So again, those things that were at play when the circle was vibing, are they still available or are they not? And then again, I have a responsibility to scan self first. Once I scan self, am I an active contributor to the circle? Am I only expecting to receive from the circle, or am I giving the circle what I'm expecting to receive as well? There has to be, like, the law of reciprocity is a thing. So if I'm not making any deposits, then I shouldn't be making any withdrawals. That's the rule of the circle. So that's the thing that I have to say. Do I believe there are instances where you can outgrow the circle? Sure, but I don't think that's the I think that's the exception to the rule. I don't think that's the rule. And so when we look at it from that perspective, I think most people who just leave the circle, they just leave the circle because they want to leave the circle, and then their response is that, well, I've outgrown the circle. But there's no evidence to support the fact that I've outgrown the circle. So that's where we'll start at. Not necessarily saying that it's not possible. Again, I think that's the exception, not the rule. If the circle is operating like the circle is supposed to, then we challenge everybody in the circle to growth.
Okay. So here's some of my thoughts. One of my thoughts was circles can be seasonal, right? There may be a circle I'm with for a certain amount of time, may not be with their circle forever. And then what I was thinking about as you guys were talking about is something that I've often seen in the church, right? And one of those things is people will have friends and they will be clubbing or they will be living a sinful life, and then they will get saved and come to church, and then they say, you know what, I've outgrown those friends. I don't do what they do no more. So is and that's not necessarily silent signs, but this is more so back to the outgrowing your circle piece. So is that considered outgrowing your circle? Is that considered just you've moved to a different place in your life and what they're participating in you no longer participate in? Or do you still try to balance out that circle even though you not outgrown, but you don't do those things anymore? So what do you guys think about that?
So in that response, that's kind of like what I'm
Mhm,
saying. So we have a different belief system now.
mhm.
That's kind of like that goes all the way back to the beginning when we talked about the circle, right?
And
When
that's
the
not
circle,
about outgrowing, that's about
no,
a different
that's a
belief.
different
Okay,
belief system.
okay.
I don't even fit in that circle anymore. I would be doing the circle as it is. I would be damaging everybody in the circle because I am pursuing this new thing. Plus, on top of that, not only would I damage the relationships in the circle, but the circle will also damage me. So I have a responsibility to leave that circle and go find a new circle of like-minded individuals. When I find a new circle of like-minded individuals, I can still have those friends. That does not mean that I participate in that circle. We can still conversate from time to time. That does not mean I participate in that circle. From that aspect, it's not about growing, it's about belief system because you grow in the direction of what you believe. So now they still believe in clubbing, they still believe in all those great things. That's fine for them. But I have to let them know because I owe them that much, at least at a minimum. Say, hey, man, this was great, but I'm going to go over here because this is what I'm doing now. You're welcome to join me. In fact, I invite you to join me. But then by that same token, they may not necessarily be there just yet. So then when I move over here, I find a new circle and we have that same mentality, right? We nurture, we challenge, and we grow constantly in the direction of our belief system. When they call me, I don't be like, hey man, I can't talk to you no more because I don't believe what you believe. No, we can still have conversation. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. How's everything going? How's the wife and kids? So forth and so on. But then from that perspective, okay, well, y'all, y'all have fun at the club tonight. Eventually, what you will find is that maybe they'll be like, you know what, I'm tired of the club too. Hey, man, can I come and join the circle that you with? Sure, come on over. Because I think that's one of the things we do too often. We close the door on people because they don't believe like they believe. Well, how did they get into the new circle then?
One interesting thing is that you mentioned that this was, that part was more so the exception, right? Outgrowing your circle is more so the exception. And what's interesting is I think the totally opposite, but here's why I think that.
Mhm.
First of all, I think the main reason is that's what I've always heard this term, outgrowing your circle. So I think because I've heard this term so much over and over and over, and I've never heard it put a different way, the way you just articulated, I'm here without I'm here with that being the rule, not the exception. And it's only because I've been programmed just by this word, by this term. Never heard a different term and never heard it a different way. So I just find that interesting that it's more than likely based off of just this term, outgrowing your current circle, which
Right.
is interesting.
And that's evidence of I believe it, therefore it's true, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to it's true, therefore I believe it. If
Mm-hmm.
we believe a thing, we'll believe it is true, therefore it must be true for me.
Mm-hmm.
But no one has any obligation to adhere to that version of truth because when you really start looking at it across the board, how much evidence have we ever seen that? What is the like when we really start looking at things? And again, just like I said, Is it a different belief system? No, that's not outgrowing the circle. But if we're in the circle and we get to a certain point and it's like, ah, man, this circle is no longer serving me, well, there's a challenge. Because if I'm looking for the circle to serve me, now I have a self-centered perspective as it pertains to the circle. So I'm not even an active participant in the circle because I am looking to withdraw instead of looking to deposit. So I still didn't outgrow the circle. I just got selfish in the circle.
Yeah. And I see all that. And the more I think about different reasons why circles break up, it's usually people have different beliefs about different things. One believes this thing and the other believes this. And it's not so much, like you said, the outgrowing. You know what I mean? So just simply hearing the term outgrowing versus belief system changed the whole dynamics of this conversation in my head, which is why I like coming up here on Friday nights. So if you ain't already, go ahead and hit that like button, share, and all the other stuff. Gaddy, what you got? You want to add anything to this?
No, when I'm listening to y'all talk, what I hear is conditioning at its finest. I've been conditioned to see it this way. Therefore, it's hard for me to hear what you're saying because I'm conditioned to hear it this way. So I'm looking for this to be true. I'm not looking for what is true. So I'm looking for this to be true. And so that hinders me from being able to gain information from anywhere else. Hence why we start believing we outgrew the circle. Is because we believe we understand something greater than what they believe. And so therefore, because I can't listen to nobody else, you can't teach me anything. And so I can't be taught because in my mind, I'm the smartest one on the panel. Now I'm thinking more highly of myself than I ought. It's so many other things that's going wrong that's leading to this concept that I outgrew the circle. Versus we just moving a little differently.
Okay, well, here we go. Nick D, thank you again for a question. Statement. Gentlemen, what do y'all think about this? Real quick. If you are the smartest person in your circle, it's time to find a new one. What do you think? True, false, yes, no? I like it or don't like it. We got.
You could find a new one without getting rid of the old one. Because if you became the smartest person in the circle, which I know that it's kind of baiting, right? The statement, because that just means the way I'm hearing it, if you're the smartest person in the circle, you might be the problem. But anyway, because that's how you view yourself. And it's like, once again, you can't take nothing from the circle. You trying to tell everybody what to do or what's right. But if you genuinely have grown in knowledge and have done some things and have seen some things and took a different journey that exposed you to some more things, then maybe you don't have to necessarily get out of the circle. Maybe your role in the circle might change. And it kind of goes back, I think Coach said earlier when he talks about, are you willing to put in what you got out of it? So it's cool to be in the circle when you was getting something from us, but now that you have something to give, you walk away, But then there's a question of what does that look like? Because can I handle you being smarter than me now? Can I handle you having something to give me now? Because I've been giving you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's nuances to it. But.
So this is a very familiar phrase, and you find this a lot in growth circles, self-help arenas, things of that nature. And one of the things that they teach you is exactly what she says. And I think this is true to a certain degree. This is not plug and play cookie cutter. I believe first and foremost, and Gaddy, you hit exactly where I was going to go with this. I need to first understand my role in the circle. Maybe I'm called to the circle to be the smartest person in the circle to lead the circle. That's one of the things I need to understand. If that's the case, then it's okay for me to be the smartest person in the circle as long as I don't act like the smartest person in the circle. When I start acting like the smartest person in the circle, now I'm going to destroy the circle. So understanding your role in the circle is vital. Everybody has a role. I kind of gave the example of the banker a few minutes ago, right? If we do not clearly identify our roles in the circle, then it may not be hard. It may not be far fetched to imagine that somebody else comes up and say, I'm in charge of the circle because I woke up this morning and I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, stuff like that. All of that stuff is available, right? So when we understand everybody's role in the circle, then I should not worry if I'm the smartest person in the circle, as long as I'm smart in the arena of the role that I'm serving the circle. I do agree with Gaddy. I can and I hate to go back and contradict what I just said previously, but I'm still not a fan of outgrowing the circle. I think I can spend less time in the circle if I'm called to another circle as well. As long as I am forthcoming with the circle to let them know that, hey, just so that you guys are tracking, I'm over here doing this thing as well because it's been brought to my attention that they would like my help over here. That's not a bad thing, right? That's actually a growth thing for the circle. That's something that the circle can pat themselves on the back and say, hey, we are growing because of this expansion. It's a collective expansion, especially if I go back to the circle and share how did I get this request to be over here. So like I said, I understand exactly where the statement comes from and I don't disagree with it, but it's not plug and play for everyone and everything. First and foremost, everybody needs to understand their role in the circle. And once you understand your role in the circle, you focus on fulfilling your role as it pertains to the circle.
Yeah, I think you guys were spot on with that. And I think, I want to add something to it. And I think, if you look at a circle, even based off some of the things that you guys were saying, it seems like when you're in there, it's not just one thing that you're doing. Everybody's kind of feeding off of each other. So if you take this circle of three of us up here right now, we all are probably the smartest person in something. You know what I mean? Coach may be the smartest at this. I'm the smartest at this. But the thing about it is, what I'm the smartest in may be beneficial to the group, and I may need coach to be the smartest at this. I may need Gaddy to be the smartest at this. So I think, I think this is, I don't want to use that term, but maybe I do want to use that term, a part of the conditioning. You know what I mean? So where this was something like Coach mentioned that we have heard all the time in coaching circles and stuff like this about being the smartest person in the room. You never want to be the smartest person in the room. If you do, you need to go over here where you can learn from different things. But like Coach said, it depends. Maybe I'm called to be the smartest person because I'm called to lead this particular circle. So here we go. Oh, here we go. We got another question. Like Coach said, we would derail a whole conversation, a whole show for a question. So Miss Nodella Jordan, thank you for your question as well. How do you qualify that you've outgrown the circle? This is something we need to do. Otherwise, we would walk in error thinking we've outgrown a circle. You want to hit it, Coach, or you want me to get it?
I mean, I'm agreeing with her.
Okay.
Like that's something that's extremely difficult to quantify. That's why I don't care where you go, the response is going to be about how you feel. But if how you feel is your metric to quantify anything that you do, then you're going to be bouncing around life like a ping pong ball. Maybe what you need to understand is you need to outgrow the level of feelings that you have right now and be challenged to feel at a higher level. That's again one of the biggest mistakes we made. We move at the beat of how we feel. Therefore, if I don't feel valued, then what ends up happening is that it's time for me to go. But maybe that feeling that I felt was them trying to move me outside of my comfort zone. No one forced you to be in the circle. You see what I'm saying? No one held a jammy to your head and said, "Oh, seven is turn. Y'all don't judge me. Y'all don't judge me." Nobody held a jammy to your head and say, "You're gonna join the circle or else." Nobody did that, right? You were a part of the circle. Now you don't feel valued in the circle. How do you quantify that?
Maybe you don't feel valued because you want to be seen in a different in the manner that you're seen. So that becomes a more of a selfishness or a pride thing. I don't feel like you value my voice. Well, that's my personal feelings. Why do I feel that way? Because the problem might be I want you to react to what I said when we on the podcast a certain way, because I feel like my voice is just as strong as Unc's voice, or just as strong as Coach's voice. So if you don't respond to me the same way you respond to Coach, then I'm not valued. Like, no. This is like, Coach. I remember one time we was at a revival, and I heard 3 different preachers. All 3 preachers left you with something good that you can leave with. In fact, I think the one that got the most and the most standing and jumping and flipping probably gave us the less gems that we could take from the Bible, but it felt good and it sounded good, and it's probably what some people needed at the moment. They might have needed that lift because they were down on something, right? But then the other guy came in. He was a little more exciting, but he was more of a wordsmith, and it kind of made you see things outlined in the scriptures differently. And you like, wow. And then the last guy, he probably was the one that had crickets mostly. And the thing about him is, you left there with a bunch of notes, a bunch of scriptures that you can go back and you can go put in your repository and actually, but he spoke to you not because he didn't get a response that the first guy did, not because he was boring, but because he spoke to you in a way that captured your attention to listen to what he was saying. So because you didn't get the same response Coach got, don't mean you're not valued. It just means what you're saying comes across differently than the way what Coach says. And you maybe Coach garners more attention, more focus, and you garner more praise. I don't know. But I think that becomes more of an ego thing.
I keep it simpler than that. You ain't Coach. So stop trying to sound like Coach. Sound like you.
Period.
That's simple.
Boom, that part right there. So Gaddy just started talking about it, about being in circles and stuff like that. So, why do people stay in circles that don't serve them, even though they know it? I ain't gonna get on my soapbox about anything. I'll let you gentlemen start it. But yeah, why do you think people stay in circles that don't serve them? I will start with just one quick one, and I think one of them is promotion. I think sometimes people stay in certain circles because they're hoping that this circle, if I go with Gaddy and Coach to the golfing, eventually I'm next up for partner. So I think that's one situation.
Again, why are we looking to extract from the circle before we give to the circle? Right? I mean, and if my focus is the circle serving me, I'm a terrible person. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. I'm just going to put it out there about as blunt as I possibly can. If I go around life looking for everything to serve me, then I'm going to be the most loneliest person on the planet. Like, why don't we look to serve before being served? Right? So I think that's where I would say, now, can we change the dynamics and say that, sure, this person was giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and the circle never gave anything back? That's a different conversation. But if I am looking that I'm in the circle and the circle's not serving me, like I was looking for this from this circle, but the circle's not giving me that, then I need to do a very serious look in the mirror. Like, did I go into the circle to be served, or did I go into the circle to serve? Because the highest version of who you are is to serve first before being served. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle at. They're looking for something to give to them before they even look at giving to anyone else. Right? That's kind of backwards. It says, give and it shall be given unto you, right? But we want it the other way around. We'll go into a relationship and say, oh, I'm only going to give 50% until I witness your 100%. And then when I see your 100%, then I give the other 50%. How selfish is that? Right? So, not shooting the question, but I'm just saying, for anybody who think like this, I'm shooting them, right? Because they're very selfish and self-centered. Like, stop looking to be served and look to serve first.
So are you saying, or is there a point to where someone can go into something wanting to serve? Say, my intent is to serve. And at some point, they never get anything out of it. Is that okay?
That's service.
That's service.
You showed up to serve, right?
So it shouldn't matter. They never get anything out of it.
Even if I serve and I'm looking for something in response to
Mhm.
my service, did I do it from a place of authenticity? Or did I do it because I'm looking to receive while I was doing it? I've received my reward then. I should
And
not look for anything. I'm sorry, go ahead, Gary.
no, because you about to preach. Go ahead.
No, man.
Yeah.
I want to back off the mic, bro. But I'm just, that's just my point. Like, we are really stuck, especially in this time and era. We are a very self-centered society, very
Mhm.
self-centered, right? I want this to be this way. I want this to serve me. If it doesn't make you feel the best version of yourself, wait a minute. Why did it become the circle's responsibility to make you feel like the best version of yourself? Like, why do people stay in circles that don't serve them? Well, why did I go in the circle looking for the circle to serve me? Why did not go into the circle looking to say, hey, how can I be of service? How can I help? You got this going on? What do you need me to do? How can I help you do that? Like, I'm here. Like, hey, man, help me out. I'm here. I want to help. Tell me how I can help you. Or if that person say, hey, man, look, I got like 50 things on my plate. Just pick one. Tell me the one that you're good at and you can have it. But then you never show up and say anything. Well, you didn't look to serve. You were just putting on airs at that point. It's just a good talk. It's just a good conversation. You didn't really mean it. You was just showing up and say, hey, I'm here. Glorify me.
If I added a word, would this change the perception of the question, right? So if I change the question to why do people stay in circles that don't serve them well, even though they know it, would that change anything or would it still be the same?
Sure, it makes it more subjective.
Okay. All right. Well, boom, let's do this. Let's slide on down to this whatchamacallit question over here, to this scenario. Cause I wanted to get to some scenario questions. Cause we moving right along. So here's the scenario question. Scenario. Supportive sabotage as far as your love life, right? So this is the context of it, love life. You're building something meaningful, your business, your fitness, or your faith, but your partner dismisses it or tries to make you feel guilty for focusing on it. That's all you're gonna get. Now you got to add two.
That ain't your partner.
Okay.
That may be your lover or whatever, but it ain't your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not with me when I'm pushing towards something, then you're not my partner. Like, that partnership means we both play a role in the success of this thing. All right. So we both are playing a role in the success of this relationship, marriage, friendship, whatever it is. If you're not here to support where we're going or where I'm going in this thing, like I'm going to support when you get on your journey, then you're not my partner. You might just be be a person that I talk to, an associate. That's how I understand when my father used to say, "No, those are associates," right? Because because we're not both in it to support each other. So I don't even know if you're a friend at that point. You're an associate. You're someone I talk to. You're someone I can conversate with. But I don't, and I know people. So I know that I can call you and say, hey, I need your advice on this. Or, man, I don't know if I should do this. But if I can't call you and I can't do that, then you're an associate. I ain't got no hard feelings. I just know who you are.
Agreed. Sabotage. Sabotage. Right. That's what I'm gonna go with it. So I need to quantify the word partner because to some circles that means something totally different. If we're talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like if we're talking about the bros, okay, that's different. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about a life partner,
Love life.
love life partner, like your significant other, nah, bruh, I'm not building something meaningful. We building something meaningful. Kapchi kapshida. We go together. And if you are the person that's poking holes in the boat, you got to go. It's not a very difficult conversation. And here's the problem with us. We don't take the time to understand whether or not that person has the capacity to do that before we decide we want to jump the broom. And then we jump the broom and then realize, like, oh my goodness, I had no idea this was who you were because you didn't take the time to learn the person.
Yeah, and I think what really
Woo.
makes it a bad thing to sabotage is the dismissing. Like you just dismissed it. Like I'm coming to you. I didn't thought about like if I'm over here talking about a business, I done probably thought about it for a little bit. Probably put some hours and plenty of thought, maybe some YouTube videos in it. So when I bring it to you and you just automatically dismiss it and shut it down, it's like you said, maybe you ain't the one. You know what I'm saying? Because we in this together. We partners.
And I want to quantify because when I started off when I said we got to understand the dynamics of the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we look at it from the beginning, if we're connecting, that's the quantifying period. We're quantifying each other's existence. If you don't have the capacity to do that, then there is no love life to follow afterwards. That's why I say we got to kind of quantify it, which version of the relationship we're in. Have we already committed and said this is what we're doing? Then there is no lack of support. There's only support. That's the only option. It doesn't really matter how you feel about it. This is what we're doing. But if we're over on this side still trying to figure it out, that's not your responsibility now. However, what I am looking for to see if you have the capacity to do it without me requesting it. If I have to request it, that tells me a lot about who you are.
Yeah. See, this scenario makes it a little bit different when we go back through the questions, right? Because now I have a thing, fitness. How do I know if my partner is hindering or helping? If you're making me feel guilty for getting my gains in, then you hindering my fitness goals.
She's trying to tell you need to fit in this taco in your mouth.
Exactly.
Taco Bell tonight, bro.
French Fry Friday.
Right. But it's a little bit easier when I could put a thing to it. Now I know what the vision is. Right. I'm either trying to lose weight or gain muscle.
And I'm saying that jokingly, but to your point, let's just go a little extreme. Let's just say I have high blood pressure. You frying chicken tonight ain't gonna help me. Don't fry no chicken if you know I got high blood pressure. You are trying to like slowly put me in a grave to get the insurance check. Yeah, you're trying to get the insurance check in a slow roll. I see what you're doing, right? I'm going to my boy house because I know they over there baking chicken. I don't want no fried chicken.
Baked chicken. Hey, here we go. We're gonna slide down. We at the hour mark. So chat, if you had appreciate you guys for chiming in, being part of the conversation. If you hadn't already, hit the like button, subscribe, do all of those different things, share it with somebody who may benefit from this conversation. So fact or myth? Because there's another one of those things. So I'm really interested when I got this question, I'm like, I am really interested in hearing it because this is something. This may go back to that word, that C word that Gaddy said earlier, right? So you are the average of 5 people you spend the most time with, fact or myth? In chat, feel free to put your F or your M in the chat because I am very interested to see what they got to say too. What say you, gentlemen?
This is more of a can be. It's like
he said can be.
Right. So are we assuming that I'm extracting from everybody in my circle to become who I am?
Or we are assuming that you are the average of 5 people you spend the most time with. That is it. That's all you get. Or as Coach would say,
myth.
Yes.
I am me in my circle, and hopefully you are you, and that's what makes our dynamic great. I'm gonna leave it like that.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm a very unpopular response. I'm gonna go fact, and here's why. I know that's what I'm saying. I'm going back to the circle because remember, the circle is supposed to challenge you to growth. So if and I tell you what the true statement is, like if you're in a circle of friends and none of them are broke, you're going to be number 10. That's what the saying is. But conversely, if you're in a circle and 9 of them are millionaires and you're about to be the 10th one. So is there any fact to that? Sure, there can be fact to it only if you're open to learn from the circle. I think where this becomes a myth is that some people go into the circle thinking they know everything about the life that they're trying to live because society has influenced everybody to be your authentic self, but yet they still don't know who their authentic self is. So they fight for the version of themselves that they have in their head, but yet they don't necessarily make room for the person that that their future self is screaming for them to be. So can the circle influence you to step outside of your comfort zone to be a better version of yourself? Absolutely. That's the purpose of the circle. The circle is supposed to help everybody grow. So now, when it comes down to the average of the people in the circle, as long as you're teachable, coachable, and trainable, the answer is yes. But if you're stubborn, self-centered, and bullheaded, the answer is no.
Monkey wrench, maybe or maybe not. Does this change? I remember, Coach, you said earlier, you may be put in a situation where you're in a leadership role and you are the smartest person and you're there to lead. And if you're there to lead and that's that circle of 5 people, would this still be fact then? Or would this, or am I talking about the exception? Because if I'm talking about the exception, then we don't got to spend no time on it.
Reframe the question, because I don't see it as being different.
Okay, so you said that. So I guess what I'm thinking when we're looking at, we talked about that question about outgrowing your circle, and then we talking about the circle as far as sometimes sometimes you're put in the circle to be the smartest person because you're there in a leadership capacity, right? So you said fact to this question because you're the average of the 5 people. So if you're in that leadership role, wouldn't you kind of sort of be above average of those 5 people? I don't know.
Well, to your point, I think leaders have a responsibility as well. And so if you're looking at the leadership role that you are assuming in said circle, but you're not looking at innovative ways to bring in things to grow the circle to include yourself, then what kind of a leader, are you in that point? You see what I'm saying? So case in point, let's just say, and I'm going back to, and I want to incorporate this in this conversation. I'm not saying that this is the only place that it works. Let's just say, and you guys know my focus is reading, dissecting, and making the Bible plain. That's what I tend to spend my time with doing. But let's just say we bring in somebody who is a financial guru. Well, when that person comes in to teach, I am not a leader. I am a part of the group, and I am learning right along with the group. That's where it becomes the thing. The problem is that most people don't understand leadership. So when they get into those roles, they think, well, I have to do everything, me, and me, so forth and so on. No, especially when you identify people in the group and the skills and talents that they have, and then you allow them to, take the lead for the thing that they specialize in. Again, the circle is a space for growth for everybody in the circle.
And then who says that the person that was called to lead is automatically the smartest person?
That's true too.
You're just more the leader. There's some people who just have better leadership quality, don't mean that they are the smartest ones. I think sometimes the best leaders is to know when they're not the smartest one.
A lot of them create businesses. They employ other people.
That's smarter than them. Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way to do it. Here we got some loyalty, and I don't know if we need to define loyalty or not for this fact or myth, but loyalty means keeping the same friends forever. Or is it just going to be the same regardless of whether or not you adjust the term loyalty? Because we talking about loyalty, ride or die.
I don't think loyalty
NWO Wolfpack for life.
I don't think loyalty means forever, because if I could be loyal to you, but you cross me, does forever still stand? Right? You do something that's unexcusable, And for me, unforgivable. Do I still does forever still stand? So no, loyalty means I'm loyal to what we have while we have it. But if we have to cut this off, then I'm still going to be loyal to myself and my God first. Well, my God and myself. Let me put it like that. First. Then I'm loyal to whatever else I am a part of. But yeah, I don't think loyalty means that I'm committed while I'm here. I don't think it means that it has to be forever.
Yeah, I think we kind of already answered that, to be honest with you. That's definitely a myth. And then I think we sling the word friends around too loosely, but that's a whole nother
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah, and then family and all the other stuff. Yep, I feel you on that one. Um, I know we use the word outgrow, but we're gonna use it again for this factor myth. If you want to adjust it or change it to something different, more than willing to accept that too. Um, Change of beliefs or something like that. You can outgrow people without beef or drama.
I will focus on the without beef or drama piece, right?
Uh-huh.
Because again, I already said how I feel about the whole outgrow people.
Yeah,
I think
you can move to a different circle.
correct, right. But with I think you can do anything without beef or drama. You just have to
Mhm.
mature to that space to do so.
Yep. Yep, I agree.
I agree. I would say fact, whether we move the word outgrow or not. How because I understand how you seen the word outgrow, but I also don't like to use that. I don't like using that word outgrow. But we can move differently without it being beef. But it's kind of like what I said earlier. I can say, hey, I think I'm at a place now where I have to kind of do this, and it's probably take away from me doing this specific thing. But you still my boy, and let's chat, let's kick it, you know, let's talk. Did you see the game last night? Right. So there's no beef. Beef comes in when your ego comes in.
And if we were really friends, you would cheer for me when I move on to do something better.
I like it. So here's the part of the show where we want to give a little bit back to the chat and the viewers and stuff like that. So, gentlemen, we've talked about circles and the topic is about circles, and we've talked a bunch of different ways and about circles in general. So everybody doesn't necessarily know how to build that circle. Um, I was I'm about to be in conversations with a friend right now, and I don't think this friend has a circle, and I think that they are at a point of their life where they're looking to find their purpose. They don't know it yet. I am assuming this just based off of the questioning that he's been asking and the behaviors and stuff like this. I'm like, oh, I think he's about to start digging into finding his purpose and stuff like that. So, um, but for someone who doesn't know, how do you intentionally build a circle that aligns with your goals and your values? I did remember, I think Lisa Keys something says, I think she said something about she don't have a circle. I don't know if she was joking or not, but I think I do remember that comment earlier. So, gentlemen, what say you?
I would start off by saying, try being the person that you want to be around. Let's start there. I think, again, I go back to the place to where we're looking for a circle, but just by virtue of the thing that we're looking for, it is evidence that we're looking for the thing to pour into us. There has to be some intentionality that goes along with this whole circle thing. So then the question is, how intentional about you being that person that other people want to be around? What do you have of value that you can offer other people that would be attractive? And I'm not talking about energy vampires. I'm not talking about leeches or anything of that nature. I'm talking about are you intentional about growing? Are you like focused on becoming a better version of yourself? Do you have emotional stability about yourself? Can you be told about what you're thinking or what you're saying without getting all in your feelings and things of that nature? Those are clear indicators that it won't be long before the people that you're trying to associate with will withdraw away from you. So try focusing on that first, because I think that's a good starting place. just keep in mind the energy that you put out, right? That energy will get to the point to where it also becomes the energy that you draw in. So going back to the whole emotional thing, if you don't have like positive control or have the ability to manage and regulate your emotions, you should not be surprised when you garner the same type of response that you get. I will also say, people like to say, go to play, go, how does the saying go? Go the places that you are celebrated and not tolerated. Do not listen to that. That is the biggest lie that was ever told on the planet. If you cannot be told something, if you can't be challenged in your thinking, your beliefs, and things of that nature, you are not ready to be in that circle. So, again, I go back to the beginning. Focus on being the person that other people will want to be around. Focus on building yourself up, become more emotionally stable, become more psychologically stable, right? Don't look to be that person that just get take, because that circle will not last long. Give more than you expect to receive.
I will go. I'm gonna go a little further back in time concerning this than you did, Coach, because you kind of went into the now to the building the circle stage, but building yourself stage. How do I know? First of all, the problem if I don't know if the people I'm pulling into my circle aligns with my goals and values, then I don't know what my goals and values are. So the way I'm looking at it, just the way I see it, is align yourself with your goals and values. If I say I believe in the word of the Most High, then that's what I'm going to align with. That's the final authority that says it. Then I tell you, only two type of people are going to try to latch on to you: the ones who are coming to disrupt, and those who are coming to to align, right? And by align don't mean that you may be the leader or you may not be the leader. It means that that person may be may be looking for that same journey, that same walk, right? Or looking for someone that exhibits the same values they're looking for in their circle. But then you got those who are going to come and just tell you how great of a person you are and how amazed by you they are. And then really they just want to knock you off your square because the enemy don't want to see you align yourself with the will and the ways of the Most High. That's just facts. So at that point, you got to know when to cut off, when to say no. I think sometimes we embrace people because they're friendly and mistake them for friends, for quality friends. No, they're just friendly. But once I know that you're not going to be on this same beaten path, that you're going to try to influence me the other way, then you got to go before we get too connected.
Yeah. Both great perspectives and points. For me, I don't know if this old school or not, but I think I'm looking at two things. One, I'm looking at being intentional. First of all, how do you do something intentionally? Where you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional with a plan. You have to be intentional with goals. You have to be intentional with values. All these different things like this. And I'll use a simple analogy. I think it'll fit. And that's like if your goals and your values are to be more healthy and more fit. So one of the things you could do intentionally to help build a circle is something as simple as, sign up for a run and then go there, or sign up for a running club, because now you have a group. Now you have a circle of people who are aligned and they're about doing the same things. Not everybody in the running group is have the same goals, but you're going to find people in that circle who you are going to align with, that have the same goals and have the same value, and then you're being intentional about it. And I know that's with a running club, but there's Facebook groups, there's podcasts, there's a lot of different spaces where you can go to where people are working on the same goals and values that you are. And if you physically put yourself in that space or in that presence, I think that will help you um when it comes to building that circle that aligns with your goals and your values. Excuse me. Um, this one I think is a really good one, and I think this may go back to not necessarily outgrowing your circle or but I know we use that word a lot, but um can you grow and still maintain relationships with people who are not growing? And I'm very interested to hear what the chat has to say about this too. So please feel free to chime in and let us know what you think about this, because um I'm interested. I think I'm still on the fence about this. So, and I think I'm on the fence. I ain't gonna say why. I think one of y'all are probably gonna say it, but based off this question, what do you guys think? Can you grow and still maintain relationships with people who aren't growing?
I'm gonna pull a coach. You use the word "can you?" The answer is gonna be yes, you can.
Okay.
Uh, but I do believe that if I'm growing in a way that's going to disrupt our relationship, whatever that looks like, whether it's a positive change in me or not, you'll break off before I break off. You'll be more uncomfortable, and because I was wrestling while I was thinking, because I heard this term one time that, you know if you're growing and you're achieving and you're goal oriented, the people around you that are not will become uncomfortable, and they will either become more goal oriented so that they don't not identify, or they'll break off. But I was struggling with how much of that statement I believed. So that's what my struggle with it was. But you say, can you? Yeah, you can.
I think with this question, the important word in this sentence is maintain, um, because the maintain to me is short for maintenance, which means that I am putting work into it. But the question that you have to entertain is how much work are you going to put in a relationship when you guys are traveling in two separate directions? So again, going back to what we said, are we talking about just a relationship, or are we talking about the circle? Because if we're talking about the circle, then everybody in the circle should be growing. If we're talking about somebody outside the circle, sure, we can have a relationship. It might be a relationship we talk once a month. It might be a relationship we talk once every 6 months. And when we do talk, it's almost like we never skip the beat. And when we're talking, we're not like mad at one another because I ain't talked to you in 6 months. No, it's like we're catching up on each other's life and excited for the accomplishments, that that everybody's achieving. Like I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and I have not talked to Sean in a minute, and it was like we're on the phone talking. I'm listening to the excitement that he is sharing, and I get excited because of what he is sharing with me. And so that, I tell him that I said, "Man, I'm excited just by listening to you. Like that sounds really good." So I think the key here is maintenance. Like, how do we define maintenance? And to what degree do we work at the relationship based upon the directions that we are going? And have we worked on the relationship enough prior to where, as time progresses, when we get to that space to where we're not in each other's presence, we don't talk to each other 6 months, a year, whatever the case may be, we still have that connection that when we talk, we can still have great conversation and cheer for one another just by catching up. So the answer to me is yes.
Yeah. I'm agreeing with yes. And I think, like you said, the maintenance piece is very important. And I think that also loops back around to the cycle or the consistency in which you spend with the person in this relationship. Cause I get it. Like if I'm growing, I'm on some stuff and you down here, we can still kick it and cool, but we can't kick it all the time because you ain't willing to grow. You know what I mean? And that's okay for you and where you are in your life, and I'm not here to change you or trying to change anybody in the world. You know what I mean? It's just, we will maintain it for however long we can, depending on the dynamics of the relationship at the time and what's going on. But we're gonna go through go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I do want to add one caveat. It's not that
Yes, sir.
Sean isn't growing. That was the beauty of the conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
He is growing in his own lane. And like I said, I was excited to hear the advancements that he was sharing. I think the issue here is when we look at with people who aren't growing, we believe that we know what they are and what they are not doing when they're not even in my purview. I can't even witness what they're doing. So it's like a lot of times we assume that a person isn't doing a thing just because the thing that they aren't doing doesn't look like the thing that you're doing. That's not an accurate assertion, and that might be evidence that you're thinking too highly of yourself in the midst of it.
Yeah, but it's very subjective because who are you to determine who is and who is not growing?
But if we look at it,
you may not be able to see it through your lens.
Yeah, but even if we look at it from the aspect of we're doing the same thing, right? You were 13 Fox, right? I don't. What was your MOS?
I was 13 Fox, yes.
Oh,
I don't know what Unc was.
I was 15 Quebec. I was air traffic control.
Oh, air traffic. Okay, so he didn't really have too much of a job, but
I'm about to say, man.
I'm joking. But we've all had a 42 Alpha, 13 Fox, a 15 Delta. You said
Quebec.
It was one of them letters. 15 Quebec that we came in with, that we were on track with, that we went to AIT with, we were cool with. That was our battle. That's how we talked about them. And he or she may not have lasted 20 years. He or she may not have put on stripes at all. He or she may not have taken the same route we've taken. And we look at them and it was like, well, they didn't grow. They didn't progress. They didn't become a NCO or a senior NCO or what have you. They stopped shorter than I stopped. And there are some people out there who were like, I can't talk to you. You're beneath me. I now have to treat you differently because I have an extra rocker than you, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, of course I could. He made sure you said song first class, but does that have to be the case? If they got out the military, are they no longer your battle because they got out earlier than you? Because they didn't stay 20, they went and they pursued something different. The military was probably a stepping stone. And so it's kind of like what Coach said too, like Sean's grown in his own right. Maybe he wasn't meant to become a life coach of some sort, But so I look at it as that we may have started on what seems to be the same path, but because you didn't make it here, don't mean you no longer significant to me.
All right, so real quick, I'm gonna bust out two of these factor myth questions. Myth, and then we're gonna go into our final thoughts. The first one, I got a couple up here. I think the first one, it's a good one. It should be funny. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Fact or myth? Myth. Cutting people off is always the solution.
Absolutely. I'm joking.
Fact. I know.
Myth.
I want to see how many people will actually put an F up there. But I mean, it's their opinion at the end of the day. For some people, it is, because whatever, we'll see. Myth. Mick D said myth. MYFF. Yep, a lot of myths.
Yep, agreed.
Y'all say myth? Okay. Here's another one. Last one, fact or myth. If your circle isn't toxic, it's healthy. If your circle isn't toxic, it is healthy.
I want to see what Coach is gonna say first. Nah, but I don't know. Because it's your circle. If you like it, I love it. It could be healthy for you. The toxicity may be the thing that keeps you healthy. Like, I don't know. Like this is my circle I go to just to get my, like, there's some women who live their day through just to go home and watch them annoying toxic housewives. Right? I'm sorry. My bad. But they do. That toxicity made the whole day worth it. So I don't know.
We got some F's and M's on this question. So
What is
we
toxic?
got them both.
What is toxic?
Yes.
That becomes the question. What is toxic? I
Mhm.
think a lot of times we have a subjective purview of what toxic is. Toxic is something that is poisonous and it prevents growth. So if the circle isn't toxic, I think it has the potential to be healthy, but that's not automatic.
Yeah, don't guarantee. That's where I'm at with it too. Has been a myth. You know, these are not my only two options of the circle, toxic or healthy. So since these are not my only two options, I could be somewhere in the middle. So that's me. So what we're going to do is go into final thoughts, but I'm gonna throw this question up here, and this is for you guys to think about this week. And we're gonna bring it back up later. So the question is this to think on: if your future self could choose your circle today, who stays and who gets left behind? Now, don't at nobody on Facebook or send it to nobody or nothing like that, or nobody in the chat, right? Don't do none of that. But this is something for you to think about. You know what I mean? Just kind of a self-assess to kind of look at, as I was coming to the question, I was like, all right, all right. And I'm still thinking about it. Who gets left behind? But where we thought about then versus where we think now is totally different. But I think it'll be a fun exercise for people. So with that being said, what we're getting ready to do is we are getting ready to get into the final thoughts. Where's that button at, Coach? You got me?
Yeah. I forgot who was going first.
I'm like, man, so how am I supposed to remember my final thoughts like this? Man, I love this circle, boy. You gotta when we talk about your circle determines your cycle, man. You gotta be responsible for affecting your life. You gotta be responsible for what you allow in your life. Your circle, yes, as we talked about today, should in some ways, some sort, be a motivation or a help to you in set goals in your life, right? Help break cycles that are not conducive to you, right? But does that make it their responsibility? So you are responsible for who's in your circle, but you are also responsible for what you allow people, whether in your circle or not in your circle, to influence in your life. Should they have a big enough influence in your life that it now begins to shape your cycles? The choice is yours, right? So I land there and I stand on that, but that's all I have.
I thoroughly love this conversation. I think when it comes down to this whole concept of circle, I've said it several times tonight, and I believe it to be true. We should look to serve the circle as opposed to looking for the circle to serve us. Will I get something out of the circle? Sure, it's going to happen. It's by virtue of just proximity. But my goal is to pour into the circle from the source of who I am. Now, what does that really mean? That means that I have a responsibility to the circle to continue to grow, to become a better version of the version of myself prior to me getting into the circle. So when I joined the circle, I was one person, but as time progresses, I should become a better version of myself so that I can serve the circle better incrementally throughout time. I think that's the beauty of the circle. In the circle, we challenge each other. We challenge perspectives, we challenge assumptions, we challenge belief so that we can continue to grow. There should be constant communication with us in the circle. And then what you'll find is that the circle never becomes stale. It never becomes stagnant. And then we start championing one another because the circle now starts to overflow. As the circle begins to overflow, you will start thriving in your personal relationships. You will start thriving in your work relationships. You would just simply start thriving. And now we got the opportunity to celebrate one another's accomplishments, all because of the circle. And that's my final thoughts.
Your circle determines your cycle. This is what we talked about tonight. I think it was a very good conversation. I think we all learned something from it, and we hope you guys got something out of it. But my final thought is simple. It is, you know, look at your circle. See, Coach just talked about serving the circle. See if you are an asset or a liability to the circle. I think that in any circle, everybody in the circle should be an asset. They should be um, a supporting aspect or a supporting person within the aspect of the overall circle, whatever circle that may be. So I just would challenge everybody to look at yourself, look at your circles, look at especially the ones that are very important to you, and see how you can serve more, how you can be more of an asset or more beneficial to the circle itself. And that is my final thought for this afternoon. Lastly, I'm going to stick this question back up here and then we're going to wrap it up. Coach, do you got anything? Gaddy, do you got anything before we roll out?
Yes, Oprah Winfrey's out the circle. No, I'm joking.
Oprah Winfrey's out the circle. There we go.
And now, real talk, everybody in the total mindset shift, they are in the circle.
Boom, there you go. Again, don't tag nobody on Facebook or none of that other stuff. Just think about who you stay and who get left behind. And I think that's it, right? All right, folks, we will see y'all when we see you. Have a good one, and we out.